This is LaunchLeft Podcast. I'm Rain Phoenix. Today's very special guests are Ben Lee and IONE SKYE. They are launching Emily Wurramara. Don't forget, rate and subscribe. Follow us on all socials at LaunchLeft. All right. Well, we are here with Ben Lee and IONE SKYE Lee. You go by Skye Lee now.
I do. Yeah, I do.
You?
Well,
just on Instagram.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, legal ways I do, but, in other ways, I guess I'm...
It's a good last name.
Yeah, I know. It was shortened. Ben Lee now is like the most common Korean name, but it used to be like Lebowski probably a long time ago.
Yeah, a few generations back. You know, they get clipped when they got off the boat.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So now I've got them a very common, but like a very nice last name.
Now we are here in Los Angeles together experiencing uncharacteristic rain.
I know. Foggy, very rainy. I was just with my kid and we were thinking about what's the best music to go with the rain. And
Model Coil. That's my guess.
Good.
I'm just guessing.
Ooh, Cocteau Twins.
Yeah.
It's kind of in that world, right?
Yeah.
And we're right in the new year of 2023. Does it with the rain for you all? Because for me, it does feel sort of elastic, almost liminal. Like, are we really in 2023? Right?
Yes.
It's not.
Well, didn't you feel like
started.
this new year in general, it's like, I don't even know if we want to celebrate time moving forward. Like, we're all so traumatized and confused by reality that we were at a little party and it was like 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, Happy New Year. And then everyone just sort of looked at each other like, what's going to happen?
The Happy New Year was not that exciting. I was like, Happy New Year. But yeah, the rain makes it feel, yes, kind of, yeah, like what you're saying. It's just sort of staying in the same place.
Mm-hmm. I had myself a New Year experience where I unexpectedly but so joyfully was the backup singer for like a band that was playing a lot of Beatles songs.
Oh, nice.
So I was just hiding on a cushion with a mic. Like I stole a mic and I wouldn't let it go. And I just kept singing harmonies and things. So
at a gig or in a house?
It was a house party and it was the
great.
most fun New Year's I've ever had.
Oh, that's so
Thank you,
good.
Dave and Jamie Way.
Oh,
Yes.
Dave Way.
Yeah.
I've got just up here off Mulholland. Right?
Yeah, actually, they did a joint party with some other friends, so it was at their other friend's house, and so it was one of those commitment parties where you go all the way to the Palisades and you don't go anywhere else, but it was worth it.
Yes,
they had like the most amazing sessions band, and it was so much
incredible.
Fun. Yeah, so I had a joyful turning of the year, and it actually. It makes a difference, right? When you have a great experience right at that beginning, because it colors the rest of the year. Like I'm already like, cool. Yeah, I don't know if it's going to be cool, but my heart was singing because of that experience. So I'm in a good mood. And I could have easily not had that experience.
Yeah, no, I also feel, I guess I'm not always, I'm pretty optimistic just naturally, I guess. But yeah, I think that, the rain made it kind of dramatic, which I was like.
I think part of the whole going through the pandemic and everything, I personally really recommitted to my love of parties in general. I just didn't realize how important they were to me and how profound they were. So I'm just finding more parties is always the solution to everything. It seems like,
Yeah, I agree. In real life, please, more of it.
Yeah.
IRL, as they say.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think there's something, like there was something lost that the anxiety of being sort of in that lockdown experience, you didn't really know how profound it was to connect and have community in person again till that happened. And then, so you didn't take it for granted. Like, I don't take it for granted anymore.
Yeah.
Now it's so exciting to be in a group of people. I mean, I can't do it every night because that anxiety did have an effect on me.
And also, anyway, doing it, like we had one big party and I thought I could do this maybe twice a year, but it takes a lot out of you. Mm-hmm. But the shows, the singing together and music together, that is the best.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, musicians particularly, I think playing together, because we all carried on with our work, sending each other files and collaborating virtually and all that. And beautiful stuff came out of it. I mean, every musician I know made a record, and they're all gorgeous. But I always think of what happens in person. You know that story about, I think it's Laurence Olivier, someone who used to stand on the side of the stage before he went on and say, "God grant me the power to surprise myself." That's a live performance thing that happens when people interact. And that, I think, musicians really missed.
Yeah. God, I love that quote. Thank you.
I know.
For that.
I think I'm paraphrasing. It could be totally wrong, but it's something like that.
Still,
It's something
it's
like that. Just own it. Roll with it.
That's definitely my favorite thing as a watcher of live performance is when the performer surprises. So Weirder Together. You guys, okay, first of all, let's go before we get into Weirder Together, which is the podcast you both do together, which we've been listening to all morning as we set up and talk about joy and fun and expression of memories and times together and apart. It's really awesome. I'm so glad you guys started podcasting.
Back at you.
Yeah, it's really cool. So, but before that, I want to go all the way back to, I think IONE and I met when I was like 14.
Yeah.
And you were 15 or something. All the way back. You knew River. You were in a movie with River, Jimmy Reardon. Is that how you first met?
Well, I think he was doing like a movie on our block one day before. I remember my brother brought him over, and it was before Mosquito Coast, because I feel like he invited me on a date to Westwood or something, and I was so excited. And then he said, I just got this movie and I'm going to go. And then he came back and he had, Martha became his girlfriend for a while. But I feel like I definitely met him before. And then coincidentally, we ended up maybe a year later doing a movie. But that was just like a one-off. It was because our street weirdly looked like Anywhere USA. So they would film there, I guess, occasionally, whatever. But that was just very random. I don't know. It's so funny that my brother maybe he was just like watching them film and he was just like, come on over.
Well, Dono always found himself at the right place at the right time.
I guess so.
Always meeting people.
And it turned out like our moms are sort of similar. And like your grandpa Mike, I was thinking about it the other day, and my grandpa were like the same type of New Yorker grandpas. So there was like a similar funny background thing. But yes, and then you, and we're around. I got closest to you and River.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember when, because I feel like there were definitely multiple times when we were in our teens that we hung out. I feel like I stayed at your house one or two times. Your mom totally reminded me of my mom in the best ways. And, and it was just like it was another home. It was oh, here's a different home, but in LA. You know, and so I guess my point was just, I think you guys are an awesome couple. And so now, seeing you do a podcast together and kind of join, you've always been music, art, film, parents too, right? You have a child together.
One kid together.
Yeah, I think also for artists, life and creativity and your social life and your work life, it all is mixed together. I was describing to someone recently how I have this resentment over institutionalized vacations, like the Christmas break, when you can't get your management to pick up their phone or something, because that's in the white collar world. They have work and they have holidays, but for creative people, it's all bundled in and it's 24 hours a day, and we're all, so for us, I think we were always looking for the right container through which we could collaborate and our energies and tastes could mingle and, contrast and collaborate and stuff. So it's been a work in progress over the 15 or 16 years since we started dating.
One thing I noticed listening to your podcast today was you touched upon and really gave a very strong moment in one of the episodes to Dame Vivienne Westwood, who just passed, but this was last June in 2022. It was really kind of amazing that
was... Did we? I don't remember that.
Yeah, that I was one of the ones I listened to. I think it's the one where you're in Australia.
Oh, yes,
and you were
we
talking
played
about...
a clip of it.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, just seen that documentary, and I always liked her and loved her. But then, of course, when you see a documentary, you're blown away about, by how influential someone is and how amazing. Yeah, that's funny.
Because it wasn't her quote about punk. She thought people had really missed the point basically with it, and it had become a fashion.
Yeah. She was saying something like there is nothing significant about the 20th century.
Real like a curmudgeon.
Well, I didn't know that punk thing. Like Mike Watt would say that it wasn't the aggressive, angry thing. It was more be yourself thing, and it's sort of how sometimes movements they shift from the original. There's an original feeling behind them, and I think she had an original thing maybe, and it gets sort of, kind of messed up along the way, I guess.
Corrupted,
yeah.
so to speak. Or just, it's almost like a game of telephone.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, it just changes with each person
Nicely
adding their
put.
piece. Yeah. So has that experience for you working together on the podcast been joyful and good, or does it make you want to wring each other's necks? Let's be honest.
We often have a fight like before about the funniest things, like if, sometimes we get in a bad mood right before something, and, I'll say we have to be in a good mood, or, whatever it is, but sometimes we'll have a little fight before, but mainly, we really like doing the podcast. I mean, it
really came out of also just organically, we could never shut up together. Like from when we got together, I think a lot of couples have that when they first fall in love, like just talking all night and all that kind of thing. But it's sort of never stopped with us. Like we're both very verbal people, and I think for both of us, our love language is kind of just like talking to each other. So it just continued and continued. And I think it took us some time to realize that there was some value in that for other people to listen to. People would say, you should do a podcast. But when you're in a reality, you don't realize that it has some value or something. And I think, I don't know, for us, it's like with our friends, we knew each other for 10 years before we went on a date. And I think for a lot of our friends, that has given them a type of confidence going, hey, you never know, the right could be there right in front of your, in front of your nose that you don't realize might be your love. And I think in some ways our connection, just being two people who are quite different and, having a bit of an age difference and having really different life experiences, but a lot of commonalities, I think it gives, just seeing people make it work basically is inspiring, I guess.
Yeah.
That's what people seem to say.
I don't remember how we thought of it, but it's nice. We've directed like short films together or music videos, but podcasts are relatively inexpensive, and already if you're a musician, you know a little bit about equipment. So that's also why it's kind of like, why not?
Right.
And diversifying also is sort of fun when you are a musician and, you do all these like other things. So
yeah, because we do our podcast, and then we also have a little network of podcasts we put out by other people. So we do one with Jello Biafra from Dead Kennedys, and one with Lou Barlow and Adele Barlow. He's from Sebadoh and Dinosaur Jr., and Brock Enright, an amazing New York artist, and we've got a bunch that we're developing, but it's kind of fun because you can run it like an indie label because the cost is very low to make it. So we basically are going into creative partnerships with people who we like and want to make stuff with. And, we're not delusional we're not investing a ton of money in it, and we're not promising to spend a ton of money on the marketing, but we'll say, hey, we'll throw our weight behind it. We'll help you make this thing. We'll help you promote it. And then, we've both always kind of had the belief that like you make things and you put them out in the world, and it will, even if it's not the expected way in which you might get the value returned to you, there's just good karma that happens by making good things with good people and putting them out into the world.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I was going to ask you all about how perhaps, because maybe it hasn't changed, but how your perception or the meaning, the definition of success has changed for you over the years. You both have had a lot of success in your separate careers, success, whatever, in terms of having a wide audience and a lot of people that really admire your work. And post-pandemic, did it shift and change at all your perception of what is success? And like you said, like is it a wider audience or not earlier, like you don't know if the podcasts are going to have huge, but you throw your weight behind it. Has that changed for you, how you think about like what is successful and what the meaning of it is for each of you?
Yeah, I mean, I think I always want to, it's funny. I mean, I want to be, I want to say I want to be like more successful, but I think for me, as you get older, you know more what you want to do, and you can kind of trust, as far as acting, like you can tell, oh, no, that doesn't, I wouldn't want to do that, or I would want to do that. Whereas, when you're younger, you sort of go up for everything, or take almost or you sabotage, or you're sort of like not kind of aware of like, do I want to do this job? Do I not want to do this job? And as you get older, you sort of, because you have experience, like you don't know what it's going to be like exactly, but you can kind of have an idea and more. So I definitely feel like I can tell more of what I would like to do and what I don't want to do. And yeah, I mean, as you get older, more what things cost. So you kind of want to also pay attention to, supporting yourself. And, but yeah, I think I was just sort of more out of it when I was younger. And I guess I'm getting more, kind of aware of how things work as I get older. And I would I do love sort of, I don't know if it's manifestation, but we'll kind of get together and just sort of talk about what we would like, like what we would love, how we would love to work, and just the sort of attitude. And it's not like a, new age manifestation exactly, but that's also one way I feel like helps, I don't know, like let me understand like how I want to be successful or how I want to work,
Yeah, I think of it
if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Like I think of it like there's the financial side where you want to be able to support yourself doing what you love. Mm-hmm. And we each, depending on what your cost of living is and where you live in the world and how pricey the supermarkets are, that's going to be a bit different for everyone. But on a more basic level, I define success on a daily level of, am I doing interesting things with interesting people? So today I wrote a song with this artist, Sarah Tudson, who plays under the name Illuminati Hotties, and we've been talking about getting together and writing a song. And she came over and we wrote a song together. And then I knew we were coming over here to see you. And I was like, wow, these are two really cool things today I'm excited about. And awesome. I feel like for me, I'm simple in some ways. I mean, in some ways I've always liked quality over quantity, in terms of I don't really need everyone to love what I'm doing, but I want to feel that what I'm doing is resonant with smart, creative people, because that's like my people, So that's sort of how I just judge it. And if I look at my week and every day there's like one or two cool things that I'm excited about, that feels to me like a life that I can be proud of, and I can look forward to the week ahead and say, I'm excited about all these things. So I just try and keep a very simple definition of it in a way.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful, because it is so ephemeral, even when you have it, success, right? The big version. I just don't think anyone ever really has it, even when you have all of it, because unless you're aware of those things, the beautiful parts of why you got successful, or the experiences in there, because otherwise you'll just keep grasping for the next best thing, and you'll never have the joy. As you might be like, woo, look at me, I'm on top. But that's fleeting, because then you got to stay there, and there's someone else who's getting. So I love hearing it, like quantifying success as, have I hung out with interesting people this week and made art?
Yeah.
Because that's something you can always feel good about.
Yeah. And also it's like that, like Biggie Smalls, like more money, more problems. Like I do think that we tend to have very infantile perceptions of what other people's success or how much money people are making, or you really don't know what particular challenges exist at levels of success that you're not at. I mean, I remember, it's so funny because I've known lots of very successful people, but one of the biggest wake-up calls I had about it was reading an article about Brad Pitt in Vanity Fair trying to edit that World War Z movie and how it was just a disaster. And he'd really gotten that film made on his own name and and it was just not working, and the stress he was under. And I was like, it doesn't end. Like, the problems never end. Wherever you're perceiving someone is just having this like clean run across the finish line, it's a mess.
Right.
So now I don't know why. It was like, I think I was probably just ready to admit that to myself. And then I just read that article and I was like, oh yeah, I know that to be true. Like,
also, there's a bit of maybe, like brainwashing, being like, I don't know, not Americans, but just about, capitalism and all of that conversation that, and I'm completely brainwashed. My 21-year-old is so good at, like, not in an aggressive way, because I find their generation actually very chill about making points, whereas I feel like my generation were like, just so like, but they're very like, if you think about it, like, I don't know. She just breaks down that sort of, the dream for success, or the white picket fence, or whatever all these things are that I absolutely fall prey to, or whatever. And, or just the shopping or whatever we do, so it's good to remember that that's not the only mentality as well. But anyway.
And also it often doesn't include fun.
Right. Yeah.
Like people's, the definition of success under capitalism is not measured in terms of fun.
Right.
And
this is a good point.
And I think, like, when the people I admire around me are people who are having a really good time doing what they're doing. And that can be at any level.
Right.
And I've come to realize, as we've gotten more sort of comfortable, I guess, with our place in culture, which is like, oh, we're sort of like, minor alternative icons. It's like, whatever it is, like like our little niche in alternative culture, or whatever it is. It's like we've just leaned into having as enjoyable as experience as we can, making the things that we're making. And you realize people start perceiving you as more successful. Because that is really admirable. Like, when you see people having fun, you're like, I want to do what they're doing.
It's so true. And honestly, that is that is success. And it is hard to get over the cultural brainwashing. Yeah. It really is, especially being kids of the 90s or whatever. It's like and through the 80s, really. We grew up in the 80s, the age of excess, right? And the decade of excess. So I too totally relate to what you said, Ione, and have made concerted efforts to remember that joy is actually the greatest act of rebellion, especially at sort of helping break up some of that conditioning to believe that money and power, that money and power is where it's at. Because I too have seen plenty of powerful, rich people not very happy, yet I've seen so much joy in the people that follow their bliss, follow their creative, and are impassioned to do so, irregardless of what people think, irregardless if it's hugely successful. You're right, we have to make ends meet, we have to pay rent. These things are really important because we still live in a capitalist society and we have to adhere to some extent. But I do think there's something in this about the joy piece and the happiness that inevitably magnetizes transformative and or at least survivable monetary situations toward oneself.
Yeah, and it's also absolutely, and it also is like the enjoyment of the dance is, I find that really exciting. Like, one of the musicians who I always heard, I heard that Jarvis Cocker from Pulp, that he liked arguing with his record label because he believed that at the end of the day, the two arguments would find the best solution in compromise between them within pop culture. Not if you're talking about high art or something, but if essentially you're talking about pop songs or things that have to exist within a sort of lightweight culture, in a way the battle between the artist and the patron or the corporation or whatever, there's something actually highly enjoyable about that battle. And anyway, I guess it's also about, it's another way to have fun, which is wherever you find yourself in the process of making things, to remember to enjoy the struggles, because they are ultimately in the name of creating better stuff or learning more about them or something.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear
too.
that conversation with, I don't know why.
I know.
Like,
That does sound interesting.
Yeah, I guess it was just that, like, he didn't necessarily want to win.
Right.
He wanted to find a solution.
Right.
It's like, it's like a Mick and Keith thing, like songs written by two people. I think Keith Richards says he likes songs written by two people better than songs written by one person, because one person never has to justify their choices. Whereas two people working, like how we work in collaboration, because sometimes I'll just pull ahead and be like, I'm putting this, I'm doing this, we're making this podcast with this, and she'll be like, well, let's process this together because this is a collaboration, and it grounds me, and it makes a better end result.
We just did a
can't
fist.
agree more.
I saw your fist bump.
Yeah,
I
I'm just
approve.
telling
I like
people.
it.
I mean, that's sort of LaunchLeft's spirit, animals, collaboration over competition. We love to talk about that in the artist community because that's one of those areas that also sort of brainwashed by cultural mores. We forgot that collaboration is where the joy is and competition is where all the pain really is, because when you're always like comparing yourself to others and they're doing more and they got that job and they're the ones with the hit record and you're just sinking into despair and negativity, that is not how creative activity grows in oneself, right? So it's such a powerful thing to remember that when we collaborate and when we come together, even though that can be hard and it's really difficult to share something with someone and maybe not like their piece or have to fight about it a little, but it does bring a more robust creative experience. And yeah, sometimes you got to go your own way. It's not like you have to always collaborate, but I think it's really powerful when people do, and especially couples. Like, that's not an easy thing all the time. Often you'll hear sometimes people will do something creative together and it will make them crazy. Like, we want to break up.
People break up.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
for sure.
So I think it's brave and courageous and fun. And I just, off of that, I want to ask about, because music really is a big part of both your lives. I know you're a huge lover of music. I know you always have been. And Ben, obviously, I mean, I don't even know how old you are when you started.
I'm now 44. I started when I was 14, so 30 years.
God, that's incredible. So what did you bond over musically when you met? Like, what was the thing? How did music find you as a couple? I always ask how music found you, but I'd like to know how that happened for you as a couple.
What's your perception of that?
Well, I mean, question. I liked your music because Ben was on the Beastie Boys label, so we knew about his band, and so I liked your music already. But how did we find?
I definitely remember you on tour with me, and me. I remember playing Jay-Z's The Black Album in a little dirty motel room somewhere on tour, and because I loved that record, and I was turning her on to it, and I think, and you would make me mixes, for sure, sharing of what music we were passionate about is
I wonder
part of falling
what
in
the
love.
songs were we were sharing. I mean, we probably had
Stevie Wonder. You shared I Can't Tell You Why.
Oh yeah, an older Stevie Wonder song.
Yeah.
I mean, we had it's always funny to go through.
No, I Can't Tell You Why.
I don't know
called?
why.
I don't know.
It's like an early-ish.
I don't know why.
It's not super early, but it's not his
tune.
70s stuff or whatever. But and then there's always the songs that certain. Well, we would talk about say the Beatles, and you felt a pressure to love them so much, and I was always confused at first because I felt a resistance in you toward the Beatles, and I was scratching my head, wait, what's going on here? But the later we uncovered or whatever, you were I felt a lot of pressure, something about that. But there's always funny when you have to learn how to have good boundaries and not get too codependent and realize you're not going to always the same thing.
Because also I always want to have my own experience with things, and sometimes when Beyonce did Coachella, and everyone's you've got to watch it. And it's I'm now actually having a hard time watching it and having my own reaction to it.
Right.
So I watched it, I think, 3 years after it happened, and I really enjoyed it. But the Beatles, you can never have that gap.
Right.
You never get a moment where the hype dies down and you can just enjoy the music.
That's a really good point. That's funny. That's true. Okay, activisms. Curious what you both champion together or separately. If there's something that really resonates with you, and by that it can be anything. It's not. It doesn't mean a nonprofit or.
No, we were actually having a huge talk about this yesterday.
Well, yeah, when we met, not when we met, when we Ben was sort of in a sort of Indian like cult at one point when we first met, and we would go to India, and we talked a lot about like doing things of service, and when they feel so good, like. Okay, I'll go back. I'm like all over the place. But my friend Anne Rawlings in New York used to work at this foundling hospital for kids who had major health issues and all of this. And it was the most amazing experience. You know, it's exactly what, you know, you want. It's like when you hear of like, whatever, a junkie, the first time they ever did heroin or something. And it's like they never could feel that again. And this was like one of those like, of service moments. That was a dark example, but this was like anytime I did this, and I was always looking for this feeling, but sometimes things are awkward when you're not that you shouldn't still do it, because we were also talking about that, like in our podcast we do on what do they call it in Australia,
land acknowledgement.
And you know, someone asked a question, how can you feel comfortable being on land, stolen land? And I was like, I don't think we're ever going to feel comfortable. So I guess my point is we were always trying to find how to be of service and how to be active. And it's not always comfortable, but I still think I can't help but not want to join things like during Black Lives Matter. Like we got on this call every week with different people involved in different programs, and it just helped us like during the most hardcore part in the lockdown, like it just to do something and listen to people who were actually doing things, you know, with laws and whatever, like lawyers and people who do things that you sometimes think no one could do anything,
right?
But then you realize, no, there's a lot of people doing a lot of things, and you just have to kind of get involved and realize there are a lot of people like your mom, you know, and a lot of people. But anyway, I'm all over the place. But I get like frustrated because sometimes it's hard
overwhelmed
to know what to do. And
right. Yeah, no, I know.
And then you're like, let me do something small and local, like at the library, like something that's very helpful.
It's very painful because anything you get involved in, you eventually find that it's murky. And it's complex, and activism is just as potent a garden for the ego as anything else. But people have very like idealistic concepts about activism.
Oh yeah, what I didn't finish with the Indian thing. We used to serve food, and then I remember we were like, something about this doesn't feel like I was looking for a certain feeling, like the one I had at the children's hospital, like as if it's about me, you know, but anyway, you know, you go all over the place and it's not always.
It's very ongoing. I think the exploration, I think what we share is a desire to be involved and to help where we can in ways that make sense. But I had an experience a few years ago when I was noticed quite early the convergence of the wellness and yoga world with the far right. And I noticed that coming up, and I got quite disturbed by it. And I got quite involved in, I guess, an attempt to expose the people who were behind QAnon. And there's a lot of information about it, and I found it quite disturbing because I realized that you're dealing with a highly internet literate, quite morally corrupt group of activists on the other side who know how to make your life very difficult through the internet if you mess with them. And I made a real decision to step back from being involved with that because it's not my primary job, and I have a family, and I just found it a little bit risky in a lot of ways to do with some of the personalities. There's like certain types of mercenaries and people on the internet who are just like they'll just they won't stop at anything in the sense of smearing you if you mess with what they're doing. So anyway, I guess my point is that was a little bit of a heartbreaking moment for me when I realized that I have my own limits of how far I'll put myself at risk to be of service. And I think these are all very difficult spaces to navigate as a feeling person that wants to be part of good things and wants to be part of positive change.
Absolutely. I do think probably one of the most profound things that I've experienced when I have, which is rare, but I really want to keep trying. For me personally, with what I call activism is like a kind of activism of the heart, where I hold myself responsible in every situation to look in the mirror, not out the window, like that, because inevitably, like you said, it's so easy to be corrupted and to have the ego enter something where you're helping. But where am I actually sitting in myself when I'm doing what I'm doing to help others? Is it from that place? So constant self-reflection to me is a kind of form of activism,
yeah, for sure.
Especially around do-gooding, right? Helping.
Yeah.
Like, because you could be harming and you think you're helping.
Yeah.
So really the only way to discern whether you're helping or not is to focus on where's your heart sitting. Is it about you, or is it about really helping this person, these animals, whatever? So that and like you said, it's complicated, but that's probably the simplest thing I've found to kill the complexity, which is like, oh, just look at me. Let's look at exactly where my head's at. Where's my heart at? Is this really coming from a good place?
Absolutely.
Or and that's like the only thing that feels somewhat tethered to truth.
Yeah.
Because anything else feels corruptible.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I also think that the little things that we do within community are, people often overlook them in terms of the implications of, like, for instance, with my career, I really do believe that I'm such a willful person. I probably would have fought my way through one way or another. But essentially, I feel I got into music because a few people, including Mike D and Thurston from Sonic Youth and this guy Steve Pav in Australia, they held the door open for me when I was 14, and I consider it now my responsibility to do that for younger artists because I know what it did for me. And that is a form of, like you said, our capitalist society doesn't necessarily encourage that type of thinking, but that's to me the natural order. Like, I love, there's a not Gillian Welch. There's a Laurie McKenna.
You're full of good quotes.
There's a Laurie McKenna song I love. There's a Laurie McKenna song I love. She says, when you get, when the dreams that you're dreaming come to you, when the work you've put in is realized, help the next one in line. And it's, I just think that's the natural order of things. And it's even calling it, it is actually activism, because it's actually reshaping the world and the industry into something that's a bit more utopian. But
and do you mind if I use that as LaunchLeft's? That's a really great, succinct way of explaining what LaunchLeft is trying to do.
Oh, nice.
So I think it's like we got to think in different ways about what is activism and what is how are we going to transform the world.
Exactly. How do we change some of the hard-won industry ways of being into something that is more people-based and more kindness-based and less about competition and more about lifting up and holding the door open, as you said, but like a fearlessness and a courage to throw bricks through windows and to change make even against all odds. Like, these are the things that excite me, and like sort of why we're here in this intentional space together talking about it is exactly what LaunchLeft aims to try to do, is how you shared, because there's nothing better than that feeling of having a door held open for you when you're a young kid who's feels like you're in a like vacuum, and who's going to ever hear your songs, and then you have 2 or 3 champions come through and go, we hear them and we're going to introduce 50,000 more people to them and have you play and open for us. Or I mean, it's an incredible feeling, and I too have benefited from that kind of generosity in my life through other artists. And that's why I wanted to create a space where we could do it very intentionally in a podcast format, or in many formats, as a label, all the ways that we do, but specifically as a place to talk to artists like yourselves who are, taking chances, doing art your own way, but also holding the door open for others. And off that, today, I know you both have someone specific in mind, and we're going to actually speak with her.
So she's an Australian songwriter, and she's just great. I guess before anything else, I just would say her spirit is, she's a hippie punk.
She's kind of like the definition of cool. I only really hung out with her in person once, and she came with a really cool friend as well. She's just like a solid person. There's like the definition of cool, but not that's a cool person. They dress cool. Just, a spark, but just so intriguing as a person,
and very alive, and she's a brilliant. It's like, she does. It's like a folky kind of, she's a singer-songwriter, but she's worked a lot with her native indigenous language too, but also does stuff in English. But what's interesting about her is she's been put in quite a unique situation in Australia, where there is a real effort to, some of it is token effort and some of it's genuine effort, right, to honour the First Nations people and to create opportunities. But she, through both her art and her insight that she offers into, just from her unique perspective, I think she's someone I've learned a lot from. I don't know. She's just been like a joy.
Just that people she's the go-to person. So it's kind of, is that what you're saying? What's unique?
Well, no, I'm just saying that it's, it can be complicated, I think, because she's talked about how, there's a lot of stuff about you got to have Indigenous representation on festivals or something, and they always go to the same, that's what you're saying, right? They go to the same people. Right. And she has expressed that there's a lot of Indigenous artists who you could, but she's become, it's just weird how it's converged.
At the Australian version of the Grammys?
The Arias.
The Arias. It was very... wasn't a lot of...
there's more and more First Nations representation, but I've just found I've really learnt from her. But again, I don't want to reduce it to her as an activist, because she's almost an activist. I see her as an activist by accident. I see her spirit with which she's doing her music, and which she laughs, and with which she shares her mental health journey as an artist. And it's just... she's a voice that I am really happy to see in culture. Was the Jack Johnson tour amazing?
Oh, I've got his water bottle. I'm like, it was amazing, incredible, and look, I'm still processing. I think I haven't really come to terms with that. Everything was just so fast, and there was everything that happened on the tour. The first day, I got mad gastro, and so I thought I couldn't go on the flight. And I was like, "No, sis, you can do this. You can pull through," And then I ended up going on the flight, and then right at the first performance in Perth. Right before I got on stage, I grabbed my guitar from the guitar case, and I just looked at my tour manager, Mon, and I just went, "Nah," and just vomited.
Oh, no.
And the MC was like, supporting, Emily Wurramara, calling me out on stage, and I just grabbed this little cloth, wiped my mouth. My tour manager was like, "I got you," and just like it was proper rock star. Put the guitar on, like the guitar strap on, and walked out and was like, "Hello."
Unreal.
Wow. So for those of you out there listening and watching, my assumption is that they're talking about Jack Johnson on tour and that Emily opened for him on tour in Australia, and the rest you've just heard. But I had to
Huge
glean
venues,
it.
right?
Yeah, it was crazy. I feel like yeah, it was just really wild. I felt like it was a dream. Like, you know, when you go out on stage and you see so many lights and you're like, whoa, am I like here, or like am I here? And then the light turns on and then you see all the people in the crowd and you're like, what is going on?
Did you
I
play
was just,
acoustic?
yeah. Pardon?
Were you acoustic or did you have a band?
I was acoustic, but Ziggy also was supporting Ziggy Alberts, and he was amazing. He had the whole setup. He had a stomp box. He had this big crate thing that had like this beautiful carpet on it. He was just like, everything was dazzling. It was so beautiful.
Amazing.
But
Yeah.
but yeah, it was fun. It was just nice to play and sing, and then Jack like invited me up on stage to sing Lady Blue, and I was just like, what? Like, how does this person like just yeah? I grew up listening to Jack and yourself, which I'm still kind of like fanning that I'm even talking to you guys. It's like, what? So it's like when you meet your idols and the people you listen to, and they turn out to be such deadly human beings that are so real and down to earth, it's like, like, that's solid. Like, I love that. That makes me so happy. And yeah, it was just so solid and such a beautiful memory. And his team was so welcoming and so kind to everyone that came in the space. And yeah, I felt really held and supported. And yeah, I think they did a great job. And I'd definitely love to go again.
See what I mean?
Yes.
I was saying like you. Oh, there, you're not frozen. I was saying that like you're such an amazing just voice to have in culture, and so intelligent and insightful, and I've learned so much from you too. But all of that aside, your energy is so infectious. I just feel like you bring such genuine warmth and joy to your music and just to your interactions, and I don't know, I think you're so amazing.
Thank you, Ben.
How did you meet? How did you all meet?
We just met on the internet.
Wow.
Did you like each other's posts and stuff? I can't remember.
Well, we were going to do a gig together. I think that's why we first... What happened? What show? Oh, with the Whitlams. Yeah. But I'd heard your music before, and then we just met on Instagram. I've met so many of like great friends now through Instagram.
This is an ad for Facebook now.
Yeah.
But in Australia, it's a smaller community in terms of musicians, and it's not really like in America, people can sort of drift off just into their private heaven or hell. But in Australia, it's like everyone knows each other, and I don't know, I think it's like really important. Well, we were just talking about the whole staying connected with younger people coming up and everything, and it's also selfish in that as you get older, you can get kind of stuck in your ways too, I think, as an artist. And you need to keep shaking it up and being exposed to like, there's a fire that people have at the beginning in like the first decade of their career. There's nothing like it. And that to me is like, that's like drugs to me. Like the energy that people have in the beginning when they're just hell-bent on expressing themselves and getting out there. I love it, Yeah.
It's so cool. You're a champion of artists.
I think it's really important, like I love what you're saying there about an artist, like you have to shake it up a bit because, like, I don't know, I feel like music these days, there's hardly a story behind it, you know what I mean? And there's like feeling that you've got to have when you're singing these songs because you're so vulnerable in spirit in soul and in person, like physical vessel, that it's such a sacred process and such a sacred ceremony to yourself to be able to do music and be able to express yourself in that way and be able to make people feel in that way. I think that, like, you know, that's such an honor. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for waking up early and getting on this call so we could all be together.
Hi, my name is Emily Wurramara, and this is my song called Stay the Fuck Away From Me.
All right, lots of love. Thanks for doing this.
Day.
All right, see you guys.
Bye.
Hi, I'm Ben Lee.
And I'm IONE SKYE.
And the artist we would like to launch is Emily Wurramara.
Do I have a shower? Do I look for pretty flowers? Can I even move? What the hell is that noise? We're in a quiet street, and usually it's not that really loud. Do I have some breakfast? Do I wake and bake? I got a book I open up when I'm in the mood to run away from my head. But I'm trying, why can't you see? It's really hard for me, so stay the fuck away from me. Yeah, I'm trying, why can't you see? It's really hard for me, please stay the fuck away from me. Am I a winner or am I a sinner? Put that out of my mind. I mean, I could done and no, I never got to choose what I wanted to bring. Now I live in a house with a real family. I don't quite know, yeah, what that really means, but it feels so good to say I'm learning, I'm learning. But I'm trying, why can't you see? It's really hard for me, so stay the fuck away from me. Yeah, I'm trying, why can't you see? It's really hard for me, please stay the fuck away from me. Please stay the fuck away from me. No, 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 don't fight it, 'cause I'm not turning back and you're not turning back now. No, 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 don't fight it, 'cause I'm not turning back and you're not turning back now. Yeah, I'm trying, why can't you see? It's really hard for me, please stay the fuck away from me. Yeah, I'm trying, I feel like I can't breathe. It's really hard for me, please stay the fuck away from me. 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 Thank you, Ben. Thank you, IONE. Thank you, everyone. Big love to you all. Have a beautiful, beautiful day.
LaunchLeft aims to create an intentional space that highlights and empowers all artists for whom radical creativity is not a choice, but a necessity. LaunchLeft begins with music, but its ultimate aim is to launch left-of-center artists in all creative fields.